right, so welcome back to Eyes on the Badge. Today we're trying something new with special guests. We have Stefan. I got it right.
Yeah,
Stefan Simmons, aka the two guy, who's been featured a couple times on the channel in body cam videos that he shared. How you doing today, my man?
doing wonderful, doing wonderful. Rested and relaxed.
And I appreciate you joining us today. Now, I'm excited about this interview because even though we're not gonna hold you all day, um,
hmm
I think a lot of people, and I don't know if you went through some of the comments on a couple of videos that we showcased. A
hmm
lot of the people they were definitely on your side, when it
hmm
comes to you being stopped by the police. And in both situations that we featured, one when you were at a Lowe's and you were open carrying a long gun and a handgun, another one when you were stopped in it was like Western Maryland, I believe it was. And looks like you were
Yeah.
was it Western or Southern Maryland?
So the first one was in Westminster, and that one I was actually carrying an AR pistol. So
Okay, so
I had my wear and carry permit at the time. The second one, that one was in Hagerstown.
which is in Western Maryland, correct?
Yes, Western Maryland.
Okay, okay. And I remember in that one, both outcomes were the same. You wasn't doing anything you wasn't supposed to
Yeah.
do. And they're the ones running
Yeah.
around like looking silly, like, oh, who we
hmm
got to call, trying to figure out what's what. And you're just like,
hmm
just
Yeah.
like,
I'll wait.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just that's really all you're doing. Like it's just waiting.
hmm
So definitely some specific questions that I got
hmm
jotted down that I'd like to, pick your brain about, and I'm sure that everybody would also like benefit from. I'm very
Okay.
tempted to go off script and just ask you the questions that pop into my mind, but I prepared these for a reason.
Yeah.
So I won't do that.
All right.
First question.
hmm
Why this is more so this I guess this is relevant to both videos. Do you carry like a long gun like on a daily basis? And
Yeah.
if so, why?
Yeah. So I carry a long gun on a daily basis. So when I did have a Maryland wear and carry permit, and when I had my wear and carry permit, I was carrying my handgun more often. But when I went to renew my carry permit, I ran into an issue on the Maryland State Police portal where it wouldn't let me submit my application. Like I had done
Really?
my course, yep. I had done my course, I had qualified, got all the information I needed, filled out everything else in the application. But when I went to pay the fee and, submit my application, it kept giving me an error message. I reached out to Maryland State Police and pretty much had to get transferred to like four different people to try to fix the issue. Like I was even willing to come into their office and do whatever I needed to do to get it situated. But by the time I finally got a solid answer, they pretty much told me just I had to go through the whole process all over again. And that kind of pissed me off a little bit. So I said, screw that. I shouldn't have to ask my government for permission to exercise a right. So I'm just going to carry my rifle. And there was also a little bit of a protest there as well, because it's like, you guys want to act like this in regards to my permit, fine. I'll just carry my rifle everywhere. And I mean,
So,
if I good,
but
I was saying if I end up in a situation where I have to protect myself, I would rather have my rifle than a handgun anyway.
and I would think that's because the rifle has more versatility in terms of, I guess, distance and effective range than a handgun does.
Yep, they're easier to control, easier to hold more rounds. Like my magazine has 30, it's a 30 round magazine. So higher capacity is easier to control. I can put an optic on it, put lights on it, and it's just easier to use. I know you can put those things on handguns, but it's just a rifle is easier to use and it's more effective at stopping a threat.
Well, like you said, it's more accurate. Like if you it
hmm
goes back to the thought of, hey, if you could only have one type of gun, handgun, shotgun, rifle, which
hmm
one do you pick? And I would think if a shotgun could be modified in a way where you could carry it in a compact way, like a pistol, maybe where you could kind of, without it being so heavy, yeah, then maybe
hmm
you would consider that. But at the end of the day, you can't fire a shotgun as fast as you can a rifle. So I feel like if you
Yeah.
only had to pick one, like that's where the rifle comes in handy. So
hmm
I can definitely understand that. Let me make sure
Yeah.
I understand you correctly when you talk about the issue that you had when you were applying for your permit the second time. You're
Yeah.
saying you went on, online to apply and you were renewing, correct?
hmm Yep.
So you went to renew, went through the portal, and it gave you an error message.
Yep.
Did it explain what the error was?
No, it just said no. That's all
And
it
when
said.
you called, the answer that you got was that you had to start over
Well, that was after getting transferred to like four different people. Like they kept escalating
because they
the
didn't
issue.
know what the issue was. So
Yep.
when they
And that's
said you had to start over, how is that a solution if they don't understand why the first issue happened and you were already good from before? How could the solution be to start over when, like, who's to say you wouldn't get the same message? How is that a solution?
I mean, it's not. It's just
And it wasn't because your background, like nothing changed
nope, nothing changed at all. It's just if they went through that, if I did the initial permit again, the only thing that would really change is they would do that 3 month investigation all over again. Like they would,
that
the investigation is a little deeper on the initial than it is on the renewal. So that's the only thing that they would really be able to do differently. Outside of that, there's really no, yeah.
So would that
So,
mean if you did that, would that mean you would have had to take the course again for shooting, like but the
mhm.
2 day course, not
Yep,
the 1 day, and you would have had to do fingerprints again, even though with the renewal
yep.
you don't have to do them.
Well, did I have to do fingerprints for the renewal?
It
I
depends
don't
on
remember.
what year it was. I know that's
Yeah,
something that's changed in the
I
past
don't
couple of
remember.
years.
Yeah,
And then
but
and you could at that point once they told you that, did you attempt to escalate it further to like get that overturned, or you had already expended a bunch of energy at that point?
I kind of expended a bunch of energy. I wanted to get an attorney to fight it. I just didn't have the resources to hire an attorney, so I just said, "Screw it, I'm gonna carry my rifle."
And even if you did, you still, might have been like, that's a waste of resources because why am I hiring it? I did things your way and
Hmm.
it didn't work. So then I'm asking you, I'm pretty much asking you to clarify, why your way isn't working. Like, hey, I'm following your rules, explain this. And they're saying, the people creating the rules are saying, we don't know.
Yeah.
And then they're telling you to go back to the drawing board. They're putting it on
Hmm.
you when it's really on them.
Yep. After I had
So
already paid for a class, I'd have to pay for another class and pay the greater fee to the state. So,
And
yeah.
before you started carrying the long gun, I take it you went ahead and made sure you did your research on what was legal, what was not, and what was just because you knew you were going to run into issues with law enforcement that didn't know any
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, I knew it was going to happen. It did take a lot longer for someone to call the police than I expected because, like, I was kind of expecting it to happen almost instantly.
At the Lowe's location,
No, so
or
actually,
just in
so the
general.
Lowe's one I think happened in March, but I started opium carrying a rifle on December 31st. It was kind of like a New Year's resolution thing. I decided I wanted to be a Second Amendment activist. I didn't want to talk about the Second Amendment online anymore. I wanted to actually go out and do something to make a difference in regards to the things I believed in.
This is at
So
the
that
end of
was
2024. Okay,
20.
got
So yeah, this was when was this? 20 at the end of 2021.
it. Oh, okay. I was going to say because that was because you've been doing it. Okay, so in
Yeah.
2021.
Yep, end of 2021. So literally December 31st and then January 1st, I had gone out. And I kind of initially when I first went out, people just kind of looked at me and went on about their business. I was like, huh, this is interesting. People don't care. And then I went to a food line. That was the first place I went to a food line. And as I was leaving, somebody asked questions, and I just explained it to them. They were like, "Oh, that's cool. That's neat." And then I just went on about my day. But like the first day wasn't really eventful at all,
Then were
even though I
you
kind of expected it to be
that were you and I don't want to get too sidetracked, but were you when you usually open carry your rifle, do you carry with it like in front of you or do you carry with it on your back?
in front of me, in front of me with barrel down. I don't like carrying a rifle on my back because I don't have immediate control of it, and I don't like having the barrel pointed up for safety reasons.
And if
If I,
you've been down, you're not aware of where it's gone and nothing so that
hmm
makes sense. Now, but before I ask this next listed question, if and I'm already like super happy that we're doing this because I would have never thought the answer you gave about
hmm
MSP getting in the way of you getting your. I would have never even thought that. If that
Yep.
hadn't happened, do you
Mhm.
feel you would be open carrying your rifle, or do you feel you would just it's been still carrying your handgun,
I would still
even
be
if the
open
rifle is a
carrying.
pistol? But would you?
Well,
Would
so the rifle I carry now is not a pistol because you need you're wearing carry permit to carry an ARP. So the
gotcha.
one in the
So
video is this one. This,
that's actually
yep.
a long gun.
Yep. So a
Okay.
barrel. This has a 16-inch barrel, so that makes it a long gun.
Okay. And that's how you, like you said, get around without, because it's not a pistol. So it's funny, if you had your carry permit, then
Well,
you carry the one that's like a
yeah,
pistol, but now that you
yeah,
don't, it's like, let me
mhm,
carry a rifle because I can still do that.
yeah. But
But
if I did have my carry permit, I would be probably doing the same thing I was when I still when I did have it. I was carrying my handgun and I kind of carried my rifle not every day, but it was here and there.
but it was your one
'Cause
that classified as a pistol.
my handgun I would carry when I had my carry permit, but I would carry that one because I was allowed to, and it was nicer to carry the smaller AR-15. But I
Yeah,
still do
exactly.
carry the bigger one because there is a kind of a separate issue there between like carrying a handgun, you need a carry permit, but carrying a long gun, you don't need a permit. Carrying a long gun in your vehicle, you don't need a permit. You can carry a loaded. So there's also that issue that I wanted to kind of go out and address as well.
Because the rule of thumb, at least the understanding is that when it comes to guns in general in Maryland, that you gotta, if you don't have a permit, you're going to the range, everything stays separate, ammo and gun, unless you have a permit. But the
Mm-hmm.
thought out there is that that permit only applies to handguns because the handgun permit, and then it doesn't apply to rifles. But like you just said, you know that to not be true when you really study the law, and you're saying
Mm-hmm.
you carry a long gun, meaning a shotgun or a rifle, in your car
Mm-hmm.
with a loaded magazine, like, one in the chamber, you're saying,
Yeah,
and you can
hot.
also
Yeah.
get out of the car and open carry that same thing.
Yep. No permit needed. It's even
Next,
crazy when you think about the fact that to buy a handgun, you got to wait 7 days in Maryland.
we
But
could
to
just
buy
walk
an
in the store and
AR,
grab a long gun and walk
yeah,
out.
grab an AR-15, walk down the street. So that's
Which
how you
again,
know it's not about safety.
most people don't know. So, next question that we're going into:
Mm-hmm.
do you feel that, and you touched on this, do you feel permits, background checks, and etc. Like, you feel like that should be a thing? And I'll say for me personally, I like the at least the background check. I wouldn't even be mad if they did a psyche eval, but
Mm-hmm.
the delay, I think, is really the problem with the handguns in Maryland, in terms of the fact that
Mm-hmm.
it's a 90-day initial process, and if you got somebody that's after you or whatever the case may be, and you're trying to protect yourself, I don't feel you should have to wait that long because the police not going to do it. I feel like there should be something, but not the delay. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So in regards to permits, like I said, I don't believe that I should have to ask my government for permission to exercise a right. That kind of undermines everything that makes a right a right. As far as like background checks and whatnot, I do have kind of mixed feelings about it, but my general philosophy is that every free man and every free woman should have access to all of their rights. That if you're too dangerous to exercise any of your rights, then you're too dangerous to be in public.
Okay. So,
That,
in that case, the keeping those dangerous people off the streets is not, that's the issue. Law enforcement needs to focus on that. Basically, they need to focus on
Mhm.
getting those people off the streets.
Yeah. Get the dangerous people off the streets and let every free man exercise their rights. Because like if uh if someone gets designated as a dangerous person and they can't possess a firearm, why are they still able to come to the playground while I'm there with my kids? Why are they still able to go to the grocery store if they're a dangerous person? If
That's
they're a
a
dangerous
that's
person,
that's a good point.
they, yeah, if they're a dangerous person, taking away their guns is not gonna affect their behavior. We
It's
did
just going to
actually,
change what tool they use. They're just not going to use that one. They'll use something else, or they just
yeah.
won't. They'll just break the law anyway. So,
Mhm. A prime example would actually be Zaki Rahimi from the U.S. Rahimi case that went to SCOTUS. It was in regards to domestic violence restraining orders, but Zaki Rahimi got his gun rights taken away and kept doing dangerous things.
regardless,
Yeah, so it's like taking his guns away did not stop dangerous behavior because that's a mental health issue.
yeah. And at the end of the day, too, you're
That's
only
that.
taking away someone's legal guns. Like, you don't have to be a criminal to get an illegal gun. It's
Yeah.
not. It doesn't take, like, you don't got to be a bad guy to know bad people. So it's obviously, like, people are gonna do what they're gonna do. Like, before we had guns, we
Mhm.
had bow and arrow, we had stone, we had swords. Like, people, and the most
Yep.
violent people, a lot of times, you got violent people use guns, but you got violent people that use knives. So what you
Mhm.
gonna do? Like, make it so you got to do a background check to get a kitchen knife set? Like, so
Mhm.
no,
Yeah.
I understand. There's got to be a
Mhm.
innocent people should be able to protect themselves, not at the expense of
Mhm.
them having to be at uh, you know, uh, a dangerous person's mercy and then
Mhm.
wait for the police to show up, all because of how the laws are written. So I get
Yep.
that.
Yep.
How do you feel your traffic stops normally go? And from what I've seen in your in a couple videos that you posted recently, it doesn't seem like the vehicle you were driving has tint. So I guess that prevents the that takes that element out of it. But how do your
Mhm.
traffic stops that maybe we haven't seen normally
Mhm.
go? Because from what I've seen, one time they cuffed you, and that was in Western Maryland. I didn't like that. I thought that was bullshit. I thought that was
Yeah.
totally unnecessary. It could have
Mhm.
sat you on the curb or sat you in the car, which you can't get out of if you're in the back of a cruiser. They could have just sat you
Mhm.
there. So especially if they didn't know, if they were
Mhm.
what they were investigating was even, an issue or not. So like
Mhm.
I I don't like being in cuffs. I've been in cuffs before.
Yeah.
I'm never going in them again. Like I'm not, and I we're not doing that. So you
Yeah.
were so calm and collected, but like, how do those traffic stops normally go? Are you used to being put in cuffs when you're stopped with your firearms in the
Mhm.
car, or are you used to it being more of a situation like we saw at the Lowe's where they just kept you seated in your car, kept eyes on you, and just talked to you?
So usually the traffic stops are uneventful, like in the truest definition of the word. Like
That's good.
I got stopped. It was on in Westminster. A state trooper got me. I had a tail light out. So, they
Okay.
pull up and they do whatever. He walked up to the side of my car and he looked in. He said his little cop spiel that they do. And he looked in and was like, "Is that real?" And I said, "Yeah." And he was like, "Is it loaded?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay." And I just handed him my license and registration, and that was that. Like
Because it
if
was in the back seat.
No, it was right there beside me. So how it was in the video of
Oh,
Hagerstown, that's how I carry it when I'm driving.
because at the
Because
end of
there's
the day,
still a
if you
practical,
have to use it, it's got to be accessible
yep, there's still a practicality element. Now, if I ever have to leave it in my vehicle, I do store it and it is out of sight
and it's
completely.
locked. Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm
Do
saying?
you
Because I don't
ever?
want, yeah, I don't want anybody to be walking by my car and say, "Oh, he has a rifle," and then break in my car and now
Because
my
then you're
gun's
going to
at
be
the
held
police.
liable for that.
And it's
Do you ever?
just
Yeah,
something stupid. That's all it is. So I secure it and I keep it out of view when I do, if I do have to keep it in my vehicle.
yeah.
But
If you do,
yeah,
do you ever
so
cover it like during traffic stops, like where you're like, I'm just going to cover it just so it doesn't even come up as a discussion, or
mm-mm. Nope.
just leave it there.
Go ahead, yeah, go ahead and make it a discussion. I
You
said we
just
can
keep
have a
your hands on
discussion.
the wheel and then just follow whatever they
Yeah,
talking about. Yeah.
yep.
Okay.
I have a whole kind of ritual that I do when stopped by police just for my protection. Like when they stop me, if I notice, it's like some cops will kind of sit in the car a little bit. Some get out real fast.
Yeah.
If they get out fast, I'm not touching anything. My hands are on the steering wheel. If they're sitting for a little bit, I try to get my wallet out and I kind of just throw it on the dash. If it's dark outside, I turn on all the lights inside my car because I don't want to give them a reason to come after
Yeah.
me.
Especially because you don't know what type of
So,
cop you're dealing with.
and if it's
No, I
something,
like
if it's
that.
dark, yeah, and if it's dark, sometimes what I'll do is I'll just kind of take my hands outside the window and I just sit them
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
Now you can see my hands. There is no excuse for you to say I'm reaching
Yep.
for anything.
And
When I
dash
open my
cam
glove
catches it.
compartment, yep, they open my glove compartment. Before I even reach, I ask the cop, "Do I have your permission to reach?" And sometimes they want to flash their flashlight. Sometimes they just say, "Go ahead." But I am very careful because I don't want to give them a reason to do anything.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you're not doing this to some, you got auditors out there that kind of some of them push the envelope or so
Yeah,
and in a sense, and it's like it doesn't sound like you're looking to really do any of that. You're the only
nah,
the only reason you're moving this way at the level that you're moving this way is because
mhm.
they made you.
Yeah, pretty much,
So it's yeah,
pretty much.
so I get that. Do you ever
So
show them your YouTube vids? Like when you do have issues, like do you ever say like, look, this is body cam video of this department that's in this state that I can literally
mhm.
fast forward to the end and show you that this is unnecessary. Do you ever feel like doing that, or do you just get entertainment out of being stopped in those situations and proving them wrong?
So the old saying goes, "You never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake." That's why in the Westminster of it, the first video of mine, the Westminster one, I'm pretty much just sitting there quiet the whole time. They're doing what they're doing. I'm not going to interrupt you because in the end of the day, that body cam is going to tell the story. And if you do something wrong, it's going to be no. And like I said, I don't show them the videos because if you're a bad cop or if you're just somebody that doesn't really know the law and you're kind of pushing the envelope a little bit, you do need to be held accountable for your actions. And if you push it too far, then attention needs to be brought to it. So if a cop's willing to, pretty much it's just letting them go as far as they're willing to go, while also protecting myself.
Is there ever a situation in which you would like use one of your videos in a way to kind of like defend yourself, or or do you like, or maybe you really can't spend the time there because you're like, I have things to do, or maybe it's just, you're just like, look, I'm just not for it today, so I'm just gonna reference this and see if that works. Is there ever a time when you would do that, or would you just stick with I'm just gonna let them do
Yeah.
their thing?
So there are, I mean, there would be instances, I guess, hypotheticals where I would kind of just show them the video to be going on about my way. The one in Hagerstown, I actually didn't feel like dealing with that. And you can kind of see it in my face when I get out the car. I'm like,
Right in
are
the
you
middle, he
serious?
was going to work or handling a client or something, so
Yeah,
he's like,
I
you're
was
busy.
on my way. Yeah, I was on my way to an appointment. I was on my way to an appointment. They pulled me over, so I didn't want to deal with it, but I still just let it go. But as far as kind of showing the videos to get it to stop, it would have to be like an emergency, like something where I'm like, I do not have time to sit here with you right now, or a situation where I'm actually afraid for my life and I'm trying
Like
to
maybe if you're
defuse
out of
it.
state somewhere or something like that, or you're really not in the area that you're familiar with.
If I'm out of state, so I usually don't carry like that out of state,
Okay,
especially
fair
since
enough.
laws are different. I don't know the laws as well. And I'm not sure. I don't think Virginia, West Virginia, or PA allow open carry of a rifle. I'm not certain about that. So
Yeah,
I
because
really just
that's something that's harder to find. Usually it's pistol stuff
yeah,
that you can find.
yeah. But yeah, so that's I mean there's a few instances when I would kind of show it, but I haven't ran into those yet. But probably the biggest ones would be just in the case of an emergency, and if I feel like this cop is going to push it way too far, I might say, hey, just look, here's this footage. We don't have to do this today. But
Okay,
that's a
fair enough.
situation
Fair enough.
where I'm legitimately afraid that this is going to escalate well beyond what it needs to.
Okay,
So,
fair enough. And that makes sense because at the end of the day, if they screw up for so much, you're just gonna end up with a lawsuit and a payment anyway. So
yeah.
that's yeah. So I understand that makes sense.
Hmm.
A couple more questions here for you.
All right.
Would you rather roll down your windows or exit your vehicle? And just to give some context, me personally, I roll down my driver's side window, but I'm
Hmm.
not comfortable with rolling down all my windows and keeping them down, especially if you have two officers present, because just like they're trying to watch me, I can't. And even though I'm usually in uniform, still, I
Hmm.
can't watch both of you. And we
Yeah.
all know that there have been officers who have planted evidence, and I'm not going to give you the opportunity to do that. So my thought is, even though I haven't had to deal with it yet, my thought is like, look, I'll step out the car if you want me to, but I'm not comfortable with y'all ganging up on me like this. What's
Yeah.
your take on that? Would you rather like roll down your windows and keep them down
Hmm.
with two officers present, or
Hmm.
would you rather just get out the car?
So usually I roll that whatever officer I'm talking to, that's the one window I roll down. I don't like getting out my car. I don't want to get out my car at all.
Fair enough.
But I say so I just roll my window down. But it's usually just I don't want to have everything down for same reasons that you just gave.
And then
So
you
if there's
kind of just handle it based off of the situation. You kind of, because I think it really depends on the specific situation, how you want to play it, the
yep.
energy they're giving you. Because if
Hmm.
they, it's probably one of those things where you gotta be willing to adapt really quickly. Would you say?
Yep. Yeah, you definitely have to in some situations kind of go away from the blueprint just to make sure that it does go smoothly
Fill it out.
because humans are very unpredictable. So really, you got to protect yourself. That's ultimately you got to protect yourself. So whatever needs to be done in the moment to make sure that you make it home to your family is what needs to be done.
That's a good point. That's the main thing, right? To make sure we make it
Mhm.
home safe. Because I mean, that traffic stop really not supposed to go that far. It's supposed to be simple. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be simple, and a firearm shouldn't stop all that from being, like still like
Hmm.
routine enough, especially if you're carrying it
Yep.
illegally. Uh,
Hmm.
have you ever had a bad traffic stop?
A
And
bad
when I
thing.
say bad, I mean to the point where you're like, yeah, like it made you dislike law enforcement in a sense? If you ever had one experience that was that bad since you've been carrying this way? So
since I've been carrying.
yes, I would say
Uh,
like since 2021.
so only one I would, so aside from the Hagerstown one, because out of that one in the Westminster video, the Hagerstown one I think is worse just because I got taken out of the car and put in cuffs. But there was another incident in PA, and I didn't have my rifle, I just had my handgun. The officer didn't see the handgun, but he had asked me like if I had any firearms in the vehicle. Like pretty, and I went to give him my permit, and he just started kirking out on me.
But you answered yes.
Yeah, and he asked me like do you have any other firearms? I said, yeah, hold on. And I have my wallet in my hand up here. And I said, yeah, hold on. And I open it up and I face it to him and I'm pulling out my a PA carry permit and he just starts spazzing about me fiddling with my wallet. And I just kind of looked at him
My
first off,
hands
who
are
are
on
you
my
talking
wallet
to? It's like, first off, who are you talking to? Second off, why are you spazzing like this? This is completely unnecessary. But I mean, that didn't really make me dislike police. I haven't
because it
had a,
didn't go crazy. Like you were able to keep it
yeah,
where it needed to be.
yeah. But that was more so an individual cop situation. But I haven't had a situation that made me not like police, especially since most of my interactions with law enforcement, there's no problem. Like
I'm
I've
really happy to hear that.
Yeah, like it's no problem. There was one time I walked into the Sheets as a Sheets in Westminster, and I was open carrying my AR-10, and there was a Maryland State Trooper and a Carroll County a deputy
Sure.
inside. And yeah, I walk in. This is before the Hagerstown video and after the video at Lowe's. I walk in and they both would just kind of look at me and then look back and go back to doing what they were doing. That they didn't even bother because they knew that what I was doing was legal.
Yeah.
So they didn't bother to talk to me.
Yeah,
So
and then they're looking at mannerisms, body language too, and then how you're carrying it, So
Mhm.
I'm sure, so that whether they want to get up or not, they might even recognize you. So that could, and depending on what shirt you're wearing, if you got an AR-15 shirt on, you probably yeah, okay, he's a right.
Yeah,
So that
yeah,
probably has something to do with it too.
yeah.
Last question for you here.
Hmm.
What advice, if any, do you have for drivers and others who, are exercising their Second Amendment rights? What advice would you have for them? What would you give them? Because I know a lot of people say a lot of different things on the internet about how you should and shouldn't do things.
Yeah. One of the biggest things is just to get informed about your rights, know what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, so that you can check the officer if need be, right? Knowing, just having knowledge is very valuable. Um, and as far as anything pertaining to the firearm, obviously we don't touch the firearm while the police are there, right? That's the obvious one. But
Exactly.
um, yeah, I mean, just get informed about your rights and take a deep breath because officers deal with this much more often than what people think. And I know, especially folk of color, they're very nervous. Like this was something that, because I'm mixed, so there was something the black side of my family told me when I was getting my carry permit. They were afraid that because of my color, I'm gonna get gunned down by police. And one thing I have learned walking around with rifles is that that's not really the case. Not to say that any other concerns are just completely invalid, but
Of course.
we don't have to be afraid to exercise our rights. So take a deep breath, relax. The officers, they deal with this more often than we realize, and just keep your hands where they can be seen and answer the questions that need to be answered. Usually the stop will go very smoothly. It
Just know
says
your
rare.
rights, know the law, and use some measure of common sense.
Basically.
I think that's great advice. I like that. Take a deep breath. I think that's great advice.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
appreciate you joining us here today. Too. I would
Well,
hope that in watching this, people got a glimpse into a little bit more about how Maryland works, Maryland law, and
mhm.
I think it was great to be able to just get the origin story in terms of how you actually even got to this point because I was
Yeah.
not expecting that. But like it just goes to show how these lawmakers don't know what the hell they're doing. It's like they
No,
create these
not at all.
loopholes, but the original the origin of the law a lot of times doesn't even make any sense, or it's like and then you
Hmm.
go about it their way and it still doesn't work,
Hmm.
but they still want to make the problem yours all the while we're paying tax dollars and they're getting paid
Hmm.
just to not do their job well. And I always hated that about politicians and government. You follow the
Hmm.
rules, doesn't work out the way you want. Oh well, you don't follow the rules, well you're getting jailed, and it's like, well, I can't not win on both sides. Like that's not
Yep.
that's
Yep.
not fair.
Mhm. they treating you like that while being surrounded by armed security, while walking around with a gun themselves.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that they make sure are getting paid well, and that they
mhm.
want to make sure that they're good. Like, though, for sure.
Yeah, to make
No, for
sure
sure.
that they're good, but not all the common folk, the peasants that don't have lordship.
Yeah, and that don't have the money to pay for all that either.
Hmm. Yep.